Hopkins Judicial Health Note, Public Health Impacts of Criminalizing Homelessness. And I welcome feedback. I've had discussions with a few members along the way, and I've had conversations with the administration. I've talked to the municipal attorney and others along the way. So I welcome the discussion. There you have it, Chair.
Right. I have a question for you for Mr. Constant.
I wouldn't say it's a question, but kind of a little description of the problem. Over the last week, there's been an individual near where I live who has been walking across the governmental bridge barefoot and naked on the median, just wrapped in a cloth, kind of looks like a mystic walking, and the police come and help him. And 2 days later, I see him walking naked through the neighborhood barefoot, wrapped in a hefty bag. And so I think that the point of this resolution gets to something that's long been discussed, at least in the Fairview neighborhood, which is figuring out better ways to approach the failing behavioral healthcare system in Alaska that people often associate with homelessness, but it's only associated because of the failure of our system to have a place. And so I strongly support having this conversation so we can get the state to bring the resources we need. And really the question is, I guess to the sponsor, what resources do you think we should be aiming for?
Thank you, Chair. From the discussions that we have, the administration and folks in the health department have begun to move responses. And along those lines, they've begun to figure out how to bill the state for some of the services that we provide. So there appears to be maybe other avenues for billing that we should be more robustly exploring. But there may be other things that are way beyond my particular lens that I want us to use all of our sight and power of observation to uncover. Again, I go back to these resolutions refer to the Alaska constitutional responsibility that the state has. So there may be other things we could look at instead of just billing that the resolution highlights.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Any additional questions for Mr. Martinez? Mike, when are these? When do you plan to bring these forward to the body?
I believe the motion to set the date time certain by yourself was for, I want to recall here, I think I got a message, but I think it comes up at the next meeting on the 11th or the second meeting. I'm not sure.
Ms. Baldwin, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you. I'm curious about I'm curious about the section 3 in AR 191, which is a directive to the municipal attorney, and I'd like to hear from the municipal attorney. Do we have? We do. Thank you. I'd love to hear.
I didn't hear that.
Just the legal perspective on this particular section and what the attorney's office expects might be possible or feasible, and then what the outcomes might be of such action.
In the back, there's a switch to, there you go.
Thank you. Would you mind repeating that question? Apologies, I was grabbing myself a copy of the resolution.
Sure. I was curious about the attorney's office perspective on what might actually be possible or feasible in this third section, and what you expect the process and the outcomes might be of the action that's directed here.
Right. So looking at section 3 in the resolution, the directive is to do research, right? To investigate, explore, and assess. And I would say at the end of that, we could prepare we would probably have some ideas about what the pathways could be, which we would probably not want to share publicly if we were to receive this directive.
And how would this directive impact the relationship between the municipal attorney's office and the state?
Well, typically, attorneys like to assess and advise their clients in confidence before making public statements about pursuing litigation or taking a results-oriented approach to evaluating the question of whether litigation is feasible or not. So it's typically, we prefer to do that internally and assess and then make recommendations and advise our client rather than be publicly directed to find any and all paths to relief. So we do have a lot of really collaborative relationships with different state agencies and departments. We work regularly with the criminal division and other state agencies to make just the ordinary business of the municipality work better. And so if we are in an publicly adverse position, even before we've even had an opportunity to assess what litigation, may or may not be feasible, it might be potentially detrimental.
Okay, that's helpful. Is there alternative language that would perhaps make the request clear but not combative?
I think it is difficult to have a directive to an attorney to assess legal pathways to relief without having it be combative. So I would have to say probably not.
Thank you. That's helpful. And is what if there were to be some possible legal claim against the state of Alaska, what would the time frame be for pursuing that action, and how long do you anticipate something like that would take functionally to resolve?
Typically, this would be a complex, in theory, this is not something we have yet looked at. It would be a complex and involved process, and litigation, even simple litigation, typically takes years to resolve. And then often there are appeals beyond that. So, for example, when you go into Anchorage Superior Court and you file a lawsuit, you typically are asked by the court to provide trial dates about a year out from when the case begins, and that is in an ordinary simple case that doesn't have involved expert testimony. So, and then appeal timeframes are usually 1 to 2 years beyond that.
So it's unlikely that if there was some sort of financial remuneration sought, that it would be years before we would contemplate what that might look like.
Financial stakes cases.
Thank you. That's
Next in the queue, Mr. Constant.
Thanks, Eva. I'm going to send you an email that details a proposal by the Fairview community from all the way back in 2007. I want to make sure we're not just thinking about potential litigation or bills to the state, but also potential legislation and other mechanisms that we can all work on to address the problem more broadly.
Thank you. And actually that does I would like to make one more comment, which is that often, even if there are legal, like valid legal concerns or valid legal rights or obligations, there are collaborative ways often to approach those that are more productive and more timely. Litigation attorneys tend to view it as a last resort. When necessary, you should be prepared to litigate, but often you can make more progress outside of court. And especially in a context where there are policy reasons, where governments in particular may be aligned on wanting certain outcomes, there may be shared values that can move things forward more quickly than litigation.
Thank you. Just for the record, we've been joined by Mr. Myers and Mr. Rivera. And just clear that Mr. Gecker is on the phone. Great. We need to move on soon, but Mr. Martinez, would you like to make a final comment before we move on?
Yeah, just draw to attention section 4 of the same resolution, and to Member Constance's point, and I appreciate the broader the broadening to section 4, and just to draw the municipal attorney's eyes to that as well. This is essentially asking for a report back to us with summary findings of potential legal theories, recommendations for litigation, and other administrative remedies. And so perhaps one of the additions is, and legislative strategies. But it doesn't say that necessarily, but it has this broader range. And I just wanted to draw attention to that. And also just to confirm that, municipal attorney, is there anything in here that prevents the assembly from getting an executive session report if there was such findings that called for that?
I don't know that this would preclude it, but I would say if the intent of this is to have a confidential, privileged executive session report at the end, it would be best to specify that, just so that the public is aware that this is not a report that will be made publicly.
Right on. Then the challenge that I would have with that is that I don't know what you'll find. So it kind of predetermines to some extent that we expect. And to that extent, there is, I don't, this is more of an inquiry, right? So look, and so I just wanted to frame that a little more accurate with respect to what we hope the findings would come back to us, or at least what I hope they would be. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you. All right, we're going to move forward. On the agenda, we do have an update from the mayor's office, but I don't believe there's anyone here from the mayor's office that is going to do.
Chair?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Just to highlight again, the amendment packet to the
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
the resolution that, to the ordinance that you'll discuss later on,
Yes.
AO 2025-74, the mayor's version.
Right.
So I introduced at the last meeting this amendment packet. It was specifically to the mayor's S version, not to the original version of 74. And this is essentially 3 amendments, 1 in a whereas, 2 in the sections that I'll read the whereas and you'll kind of get the gist of it. Recognizing that some individuals residing in public spaces are suffering from serious mental illness and or cognitive impairments that limit their capacity to voluntarily comply with ordinances, and continue. So essentially, the mental health thread that I've highlighted in the other 2 resolutions, injecting them here as well. And
You'd
the
like to have them added to the.
no, they haven't been, but I wanted to make sure members knew that they were coming. Because I may not be there physically on Friday. I'll be traveling, so I'll be on the line, on the phone. And the administration has given me feedback on these very positively, I'd say. And so I welcome their comments when they have a chance.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Great. I think we're going to move forward to the Office of Emergency Management. If you'd like to introduce yourself for the record, and you can begin your update.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Loach. I'm the Director of the Office of Emergency Management. I have a program update for you in line with the mayor's new public health and safety strategy, including overall capacity improvements for emergency management and addressing emerging threats. Excuse me. So I'll begin with the kickoff of a stakeholder review of the Anchorage Emergency Management Program and follow up with a training and practice with the Anchorage School District Safety and Family Reunification. So to start with, we are focused on making overall planning improvements with this stakeholder review. We've identified improvements based on the findings of the Emergency Management Accreditation Program completed in 2024 and 2025 with 73 elements of national standards. Here are the key points of this project. The project purpose is to enhance Anchorage emergency management by addressing areas identified that need improvement. We identified several areas where the program was lacking. A few are administration and finance, missing detailed procedures for handling emergencies and disasters, hazard identification. We are good at identifying risk, but need better analysis of potential impacts to the community. We also need better resource management, lacking a clear plan for management of resources and volunteers and donations during emergencies. The goals of this project will focus on three major areas: creating and documenting detailed emergency processes and procedures, improving risk analysis and prevention to better understand potential impacts, and developing a comprehensive resource management plan for the community. Stakeholder involvement involves various stakeholders, including local government, emergency services, and community organizations to ensure well-rounded whole community approach. The timeline of the project will be carried out in phases through October 2025, with regular updates and reviews to ensure progress. The project will culminate with a significant update to the All-Hazard Emergency Operations Plan and minor revisions to several other smaller operational and tactical documents. Overall, the project kickoff marks the beginning of important updates to make Anchorage better prepared for emergencies. Please note, in line with improvements under resource management, we are expecting a new contract to come to your agenda in July to support emergency management accreditation program compliant work. We are advised during our training and assessment to ensure that partners in private industry that we work with understand our community program standards will be consistent with national standards and document that in future agreements. This contract does that for the city. On to the second item for training and practice for Anchorage school safety and family reunification. With support from FEMA funds from the State Homeland Security Grant Program, Anchorage participated in a community-wide exercise from June 10th to the 12th. The municipality of Anchorage and Anchorage School District worked through a 3-day training event focused on improving emergency response and keeping students safe. On day 1, there was an 8-hour training for the response protocol, where educators and emergency staff learned an all-hazard approach to how to react quickly during a crisis. On day 2, agencies across the city, including police, fire, hospitals, Red Cross, the United Way, 911 dispatch, and other teams worked together during a 4-hour simulated active shooter drill at a local school. The final day featured a 4-hour family reunification game-based exercise where teams practice how to safely and quickly bring students together with their families after an emergency. This event helped highlight what we do well and where we need to improve. One key takeaway is when everyone shares information and works together, we can respond faster and better. Anchorage is committed to learning from these experiences and using the results to make schools and our whole community safer. Thank you for your support, and I'll welcome any questions.
I have a question. How often the emergency response with the school district and others, how often do we plan on doing that? Is that once a year or more often?
Yeah, so we've done it, I think we've done it once a year for the last few years. We've been applying for these grant funds that are currently in the news to support exercising. And we intend to continue doing it once a year, specific to this type of response, and in concert with the school district, because they were actually the lead for this event. I can't tell you when we would do that again. I do know that the school district is hopeful as well that they will be able to continue the planned event of ASD preparedness days on an annual basis. So they have an emergency management team as well at the school district. And so we just work very closely with them, and we plan together for our exercise events, hopefully not duplicating one another's effort.
Any questions? Yes, Ms. Baldwin.
Thank you, Ms. Loach. With respect to the OEM evaluation and the planning improvements that you mentioned, when you talk about resource coordination and the need for that to be more streamlined and more strategic, could you give an example of what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So there's existing resources that we have to respond to emergencies, equipment, supplies, staff, and we have different ways of looking at that. Incident management looks at it in a different way, right? We're responding as a whole. And so it's hard for us without a specific process and plan and procedure, which pulls us all together to really figure out what do we have when we need something and how do we get it where it needs to go. And we need to do a lot of work in that area.
So it sounds like a lot of like scenario planning and logistics management is.
Logistics is a good way of looking at it.
Okay.
Mutual aid is another way of looking at it, because some of the items will not belong to us, right? Like if you think of the Red Cross and the responses and resources that they provide to us, how do we work with them? So it's a whole community approach, logistics, resource management, mutual aid, donations and volunteers. We have to have a comprehensive process in place. And I think we've learned the hard way that there's some work that needs to be done in that area.
And what does the timeline look like, or the time frame for having some of those plans in place and ready to deploy?
Yes. So, okay, what is the time frame for having the plans ready? So theoretically, if this stakeholder review is successful, we would have the plans in place by the end of fall. You'll see that in the form of a new emergency operations plan come out that's been promulgated by the mayor. So the emergency operations plan is due for an update anyways, and we update it constantly, and we've done so over the years in different segments. But this is a comprehensive update. This is a very significant update. And so we are hoping to have that complete by October. There is a little bit of time sensitivity involved in that, aside from the fact that we said we would update the EOP in 2025, we are trying to meet compliance requirements for this national standards. And so we're trying to do that on a short time frame.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for your update. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, we are going to move forward. I do want to just double check to make sure. I know you're here. Any updates today? Do you want to share? No, great. Okay, but no update from the health department, no update from the police department. Is that correct? Great. All right. Appreciate you making time for others. Okay, if we can have Chief Schrage, would you like to come up and do an update for the Anchorage Fire Department?
Well, good morning. I'm glad I didn't wait until later in the agenda to show up. I'm Doug Schrage. I'm the fire chief. I'm joined today by Assistant Chief Ben Lewis. He's oversees our emergency medical and mobile integrated health programs. I was asked to prepare to talk about 3 different topics, and so those are our current recruitment for firefighters, our recent fire response activity, and our new approach to crisis response to behavioral emergencies in the community. So next slide, please. We'll start with our current recruitment. We're accepting applications now for firefighter through September 2nd. We do this about this time every year. And every time that we are in this phase of the year, we have these discussions about how we can address the demographics of our organization. So in the interest of transparency and also in support of conversations that we've been having within the administration about how we might better reach into the community, we wanted to share our current demographics I want to say current, these are as of November of 2024. I've requested more current demographics. I don't have them yet, but this is not terribly different from the way we are today. It just doesn't reflect the current academy, which is going through their initial probationary period. The bottom line here is that, as you can see, we don't very well reflect the demographics of the community that we serve, particularly in gender. We have 16 total on the line in operations, 16 women, and the balance of our 345 firefighters are men. In minorities, we have 49 people that have indicated a minority, and that constitutes about 14% of our overall operations workforce. So basically, we're 85% white and mostly male workforce. This is a sticky problem that fire departments all over the country are grappling with. We are no different. And I know there's interest in this topic, so here we are.
Yeah, and I think I have a question for you. Mr. Gecker, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, sir. Chief Schrage, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you a lot. Quick question about the demographics. So does this reflect, this is how many people are actually here, but does this reflect, when you're applying, if you have 10 people apply, 9 men, 1 female, the female is placed and half the men are placed. So that means the female applicant had 100% placement and the men did not. Is that, what do you see when you guys are looking at that? What's the breakdown of the placement versus the actual applications between men and women?
Thank you for that question. That's a good question. I would say our analysis of those data are not that granular. So that's a short way of saying we don't really know. What we do know is that we, in the past, have disproportionately lost minorities, not women necessarily, but minorities compared to whites at a higher proportion at each stage in the hiring process for reasons that we don't completely understand. To your question about the relative placement or the relative success of various demographic groups, we would have to dig into that. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So
Just for the record, Mr. Voland has joined us.
Yes. So hopefully we'll have more on this. We've met with community groups, constituent groups, interest groups, working with Kim Waller upstairs on developing a recruiting strategy. We have a new PIO. Hopefully we'll come out of this as a plan that will improve our reach into the community. And hopefully we'll have more to share about this in the future. On the next topic, next slide. And again, fire up. Oops, we went too far. Back up one. And I think I'm missing a picture there. Okay, okay, let's move. Yeah, right there. That's perfect. We lost a couple of slides. So I was asked to prepare or anticipate questions about our various fire activities recently. So I'll begin with just a synopsis of the deployment that we just made up to the interior of Alaska. We sent a total of 11 personnel and 5 pieces of equipment between the Anchorage Fire Department and Chugiak Fire Department. The Girdwood Fire Department also sent a small contingent, but they through a separate process separately from us. We received an urgent request for resources and a response from the Division of Forestry, and the Department of Natural Resources also reached out to the administration seeking the administration's support. And so we did. That's kind of the way it works. If we had a major fire here in the Anchorage municipality, we would expect and we would rely on the support of fire departments from around the state. And likewise, they should expect that from us. So we were able to support this with a high level of confidence that we were not diminishing our own capacity because of the weather conditions here were fairly moderate at that time. And in the interior, they were quite extreme. They stayed up there a total of 6 days. That was enough time to enable out-of-state firefighting crews to arrive and backfill us so that we could return. While doing so, our personnel gained valuable experience while working on an actual volatile wildfire. They advanced their own training and credentials and enhanced their own capabilities. So now we are better equipped just because of the experiences that they acquired while they were there. So feel free to interrupt me for any specific questions, but otherwise I'll move on to the next slide. How much did that cost, you might ask? And the answer to that is just a little bit more than $100,000, 100% reimbursable through an agreement that we have with the Division of Forestry, including the backfill. So about a quarter of that cost was the cost of replacing the firefighters and filling the shifts by those that were gone to the interior. All of those costs will be submitted to the state, and we will expect 100% reimbursement. So no direct cost to the municipality when it's all said and done. Next slide, please. It was suggested I might anticipate questions about the fires that occurred during the Davis Park abatement. So I just wanted to provide a brief synopsis about that. We had a total of 5 fires that broke out during that abatement process, all human caused. We had several fire officers on scene for the duration of the abatement. And we were able to get the first fire engine there within 4 minutes and able to quickly suppress those fires. We also had help from the Division of Forestry, who had equipment there. In effect, there was very little damage to the vegetation. Most of what was burned was just the debris and the small structures that were there. Next slide. Here, for your information, is just a synopsis of how the events played out. As I mentioned, our first engine was on scene within 4 minutes and stayed there about 2 hours. Next slide. And then just a general report on the number of outside fires that we have been responding to. We get a lot of questions about these. Since the fire season, since we initially inaugurated this year's fire season, we've had about a couple hundred outdoor fires. We instituted a few weeks ago a new standard for capturing information about these fires. And so this doesn't paint a very good picture of the data that you're looking at now. In some 260 some fires, the ones with the asterisks are basically new additional metrics or data points that we're collecting. Previously would have been included in either the extinguished fire, the heavy fire, or the light smoke outside fires. The takeaway here is that we go to a lot of these outside fires. We put them out, and I would say that the ordinance 2025, AO 2025-61, which is the burning ordinance, has generated increased public expectations that we are going to go to outdoor fires that we might not have previously gone to, backyard cookouts and things like that. So anyway, we're still collecting information on those. It's an evolving picture. I can take any questions that you have.
Ms. Silvers?
On these outdoor fires, how many of those have been, I might need APD to answer this question, I'm not sure, but how many of them have been responded to by APD? And what has been the results of any response that they have had?
I don't have the data to be able to answer that question. And I'm not even sure we collect it. We we could figure that out by going through the narratives or incident reports. It's not a data point that we collect on whether APD responded or not, but it is probably something that we could compile in collaborating with the police department and by going through our own narratives. So I don't really know. Anecdotally, APD tends to respond when we need them there. And that's usually if there's, often if there's some perceived threat or a lot of anxiety in the area, we call APD, they come and give us a hand. Thank you for the question.
It would be interesting to have a report on that at some point. Okay, next in the queue is Mr. Volland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I did in late May reach out to Emily Goody Kuntz in the mayor's office, our legislative services team, and then Megan Peters was copied in. I have an email thread, and what I asked for is sort of a one-pager that we could put out to the public, because I've been getting a lot of questions about the illegal burning ordinance. Questions like what are the specifics of public property versus private property? What happens if how do you get a permit? Is there permitted burning on public land that happens? How do you know if there's a burn ban, and what does the municipality do to get the word out in those instances? Other questions, what type of outreach is being done to notify Anchorage residents who may not have access to the internet or phones? During a burn ban, what am I allowed to do on my property? If I have a movable fire pit, how far does it have to be from the house? What if I have a grill? So all that to say, I would love if there could be some progress made on that, and some communication between the Assembly's legislative services team, your PIO, and the mayor's office, just so we could have some type of resource, or I don't know if it's a website or what it could be, a flyer, to essentially answer some of those more specific questions that we're fielding about the illegal burning ordinance. So just something to put on your radar. And again, that thread was in late May. So maybe I'll try to kind of resurrect that for you and loop you in, Chief, if you're interested in that. So more of a comment than a question. I do have a question on the Davis Park fires. So I guess, I see on a different topic later in this agenda, we have a resource here from the ACLU. I've been attending Mountain View Community Councils because they're a neighborhood in my district. And for many months, residents of Davis Park, illegal campers in Davis Park in the snow dump, have been attending those community councils and boldly asserting they have the right to be there. And my personal perspective is that the ACLU has upheld or has bolstered their thinking in that regard, and has come to community councils sort of on behalf of those campers. It's been an interesting dynamic, I'll say. I have seen some social media chatter from Mountain View residents that seems to indicate that they were aware that there were threats that these campers were going to do exactly this when abated, if abated. So I guess my question is, to your knowledge, was the fire department or the police department aware of those threats that potentially there would be burning if there was going to be an abatement?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mr. Volland, through the chair. To the question, were we aware of the threats? The fire department wasn't aware of specific threats in advance. We anticipated that there would be fires because that is something that would be something we would expect to happen. We did discuss in advance whether we should have firefighting equipment on hand. And in the end, we elected that not to do that. We had 2 fire stations within 4 minutes. And our general approach towards protecting our area is that we try to maintain our equipment so that it can reach wherever the emergencies are in a reasonable amount of time. And so deploying equipment to Davis Park in anticipation of a fire that may or may not have occurred would slow our response to other areas that those stations would protect. So we feel adequately protected with the 2 fire stations, both within 4 minutes. And in the end, that prediction was borne out. To your question about outreach and information, I think you'll be satisfied to hear that we have made significant progress on some of those things. We did work with the law department, and I see that the municipal attorney has joined us in developing a set of frequently asked questions. Those are presently posted on the Anchorage Fire Department's website. We also worked with the law department to prepare a flyer that explains just the things that you were asking about that has been distributed publicly. We shared them with the Coalition to End Homelessness, and they have agreed to take these flyers into the encampments and share them with the residents there. And perhaps if we want to defer to Eva for more questions, or did you have something you wanted to add, or are you just anticipating?
Ms. Carter, do you have anything to add?
Okay.
No? Okay, great. Mr. Vollen, did you get all of your questions answered?
Well, I'll just follow up quickly and say I appreciate that work has been done on that public outreach. If there's stuff that you could send, because I just haven't seen as a response to that email thread, any sort of one page or document, because I would love to share it to all of my community councils and then constituents when I get questions. And then just a follow-up question on the Davis Park thing. So when you say you weren't aware of specific threats, but that was expected or maybe anticipated that there would be fires, is that because things like that have happened in the past with prior abatements, or what was that anticipation based on?
We discussed that too. The answer to your question, Mr. Vollen, through the chair, is I'm not aware of any abatement that we've done in the past where a fire was deliberately set or broke out during the abatement, but it's something that we've always thought could happen. And we understood the Davis Park encampment, along with the snow dump, to be one of the most longest standing and most enduring camps. And so the threat was clearly larger than it might otherwise have been. So it's just something we talked about.
Okay, yeah, I just think it's become clear to me, particularly in my district, that these larger camps are a public safety threat, and I think we saw that play out in real time. Thank you.
I actually have next in the queue, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. 2 quick questions. First, the chief, you mentioned that AFD will request APD to respond if it sounds like a threat to firefighter safety on a call. But do you know, is APD also being notified just if there's a reasonable suspicion that the fire violates the prohibited fires ordinance?
Mr. Johnson, through the chair, thank you for that question. Given that all of the 311 and 911 calls are first fielded by APD dispatch, I think it's my assumption that APD is aware of those fires before the calls are handed off to the fire department. We respond. We maintain good communications with the police department in the field. Our deputy chiefs share a common radio channel. I'm aware that APD will respond to these fires when they have the capacity to do so, and when, in the balance of all the other calls they're responding to, in their judgment, it's something that they should go to. Those questions would probably better be answered by the police department than me.
That's fair. Thank you. Second question I have relating to the fire responses for 2025, and I understand there's sort of some new metrics you're using to tabulate that, but whether it's through the numbers or just anecdotally, do you have a sense of how many outdoor fires, particularly hazardous outdoor fires, the department is encountering this year compared to years past?
Yes, Mr. Johnson. Anecdotally, my impression is that we are responding to more outdoor fires than we have in previous years. I am surmising that this is because of public attention focused around the burning ordinance has elevated the public's expectations that when somebody has a little campfire going, that we're going to come and put it out. And so that's what we do. In previous years, we haven't necessarily responded to every fire, backyard barbecue type of thing, even though we do receive those calls. To your question about hazardous fires, very few of these fires rise to the level of being an exigency. And that is to say that very few of the outdoor fires actually turn out to be true emergencies. But the potential certainly exists. We respond to them. Our officers will assess the level of risk to the community and to the people there, and then make their decisions accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Quick follow-up to that. So you're getting more calls for response to fires. But separate from that, I mean, the actual number of fires that are occurring, right? I mean, is this just that we're seeing more attention because of that ordinance that adopted? Or is there actually a change, do you think, in how many fires we're seeing occur in places where they shouldn't?
Thank you for that question through the chair. I don't know. I'm uncomfortable speculating about whether there's actually more fires or there's just more attention on them. I think I would have to get back to you with an answer on that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
All right, Ms. Baldwin.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Strachey, I'm curious if these quantities, the fire responses, are these mutually exclusive categories or are they overlapping?
Mutually exclusive.
Thank you.
There's no duplication.
Great.
Thank you for the question through the chair.
I think we can move on your presentation.
Okay, part 3, crisis response, and I'll turn it over to Chief Lewis.
Good afternoon. I introduced this idea of our new mobile crisis team, I think our last session, and I got a little bit of a follow-up. Our MCT2 vehicle, which is our assertive community outreach pilot program, has had 12 days in service since the last time we met. As a reminder, or if you weren't here before, this is a very different paradigm for us. This is an assertive outreach vehicle that targets specific areas in the city that are high call volumes, areas identified by our own heat maps, as well as through just city concern that's been expressed through the mayor's office. So this team, which is comprised of a mental health clinician and a firefighter, basically patrol more or less and go actively engage with people in these settings that appear to be in need of something. And we don't wait for the 911 call to come in. They try to assertively do this. I won't read all the slides to you, but I'm happy to take questions on any of them. I'll just kind of summarize in the interest of time. We are definitely still in the trust building phase of this pilot, which we predicted would be the case. We expected through the clinicians' experience and knowledge that this would take many, many encounters, sometimes 5 to 10 encounters with people before that trust is built and receptiveness to, an openness to a conversation on resources or even just accepting a bottle of water in a conversation. So there's some data points in here. You can see, I think on the 4th slide, some summarization of the first 12 days. 4 of them were transported by the mobile crisis team to a safe location, and that could be a variety of places, but I think that's like a positive conclusion to these. They were transported to a place that they can receive follow-up and definitive care and not be in that area of vulnerability anymore. One of them was transported by EMS to the hospital. We had one that ASP transported to the safety center. And the difference between state and the community and no outreach engagement is actually very distinct and important. State and the community is the same metric we use for MCT1, And that is considered a positive metric where they engaged with someone and they found a resolution to what the situation they were in, be it a behavioral health crisis or some other crisis, a satisfactory conclusion that the clinicians felt comfortable with, as well as the clients/patients. No outreach engagement is exactly what it describes. Like the person was not receptive to a conversation or any outreach opportunities for connections to care. Hence, we're still in the many no referrals phase. You can see some of the other referrals that have been done listed on that same graph. I think the overall impression is still very positive by the clinicians in this role, as well as the firefighters. There's a lot of optimism that this could impact both our responses to these high volume areas, as well as provide resolution to folks before they get in a state of severe crisis where 911 system has been initiated and APD or AFD have to respond. So that is my high level summary. I'm happy to take questions. And if you're interested, it's kind of separate from this topic, but there's some MCT1, which is our traditional mobile crisis team data from for January to May, as you can see. And as a reminder, we did sacrifice our night shifts, which we were only able to staff 3 times a week, to double up for MCT2 during the day. So we have no night shift in service right now. So open to any questions.
Okay. All right, Mr. Baldwin, why don't you go first, and then we'll have Ms. Baldwin go next.
Okay, I'm sorry. If maybe you could repeat that last part about the night shift, because I'm just wondering how does that impact our ability to bill Medicaid if we're not, are we still 24/7? Is that still a requirement, or what's going on there?
So great question. We have not developed our mobile crisis team program yet to be billing Medicaid. We are working with folks in the mayor's office on a plan to do that. There's some opportunity, it sounds like, to maybe do that independent of the 24/7 model. I will also add that we are still hiring more clinicians. We have open application period right now to hire 2 additional. We're hoping by the end of the summer, even with this pilot program ends at the end of the summer, and there's an opportunity with enough clinicians that we could do both if that were the desire. We had the funding for it.
Okay, yeah, I just, whatever we can do to support that cost offset by being able to bill, I think is important, because I believe we're still going to be funding this out of the SCMT funds. Is that how we're operationalizing the MCT now?
No, not direct. Well, I think indirectly. It's funded through operations. It was shifted into our operations budget and supplemented with alcohol tax funding.
Okay,
That's my current understanding.
I thought at one point we had talked about using SCMT funds to budget for the mobile crisis team, because I know we had a conversation about trying to move it out of the alcohol tax funds, because alcohol tax funds are pretty limited. Obviously, I think I'm a big supporter of the MCT and think it's very important, but there's only so many alcohol tax funds to go around, and so a lot of the conversation was we use the alcohol tax funds to pilot this new program and to get it stood up. And so I guess I just don't know if I would be counting on alcohol tax funds as being the source indefinitely. So yeah, I guess I'll just put that out there. Thanks.
Ms. Baldwin Day.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all. For my reference, what does RRS stand for in outreach referrals? Forgive my ignorance.
Oh, boy. Let's see. RRS. I can find out really quick for you. Do you have any other questions?
Sure, that sounds great. Oh.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Member Rivera
Yes.
just let us know that is
Kathleen,
reentry and
yes.
restorative services. Thank you,
Yes,
Member Rivera.
thank you.
Second question, is there any data sharing happening at this point with HMIS or any of the other systems? Is there any potential for that to happen with this particular type of outreach?
I know that this is a high priority for Thea in the mayor's office, so I think we're working on strategies to achieve that. That is a goal of hers, I know, and we have data meetings specific to trying to solve this problem. But at this point, no, there's not a connection.
Okay, and is there some internal metric by which the fire department is sort of tracking engagement with individuals, or is this all sort of like for lack of a better word, is it sort of like faceless, discrete interactions that don't necessarily have like a name or an identity attached to them?
Yeah, great question. I think that's the distinction between state and community and no outreach given. So state of the community most often will have a name associated with it. It'll have a report associated with it. That reporting system is the same as our EMS system. So there's crosstalk between those two. No outreach engagement would almost always not have a name associated with it.
Gotcha. And so is there an ability, at least on an internal basis in the fire department, to sort of identify individuals who are really consistently interacting with MCT2 and also EMS, and also they're like the ability to see that from a 30,000 foot view?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is an easier pull. And anything within our agency, yes, is pretty easy. It's all a shared platform.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to see anonymized
Mhm.
an anonymized breakdown of how, how many folks. I'm envisioning like a little, sort of a cross-referenced table, how many folks are engaging and at what level, just to get a sense of what the difference is or what the landscape is as far as folks that are getting a lot of interaction versus not.
And you're talking broadly, not just specific to MCT2, right? We do have a.
Well, broadly for sure, but MCT2 would be an interesting thing to look at as well.
Okay, absolutely. We do have, broadly speaking, MCT, the mobile crisis team dashboard that does track unique individuals, encounters, how many, that is available now. Not sure if we've have enough data yet for MCT2 that's been integrated in, but that is definitely the plan. Happy to share that with you.
Available now. Not sure if we,
Yeah, thanks, Mute. Anything else you'd like to add, or? Okay, great. Thank you for presentation. Thank you for both of you being here. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, Department of Law. A couple of items for you to discuss with us.
Thank you. So I'm going to update on a couple of things today. First, I would like to report on the outside policy review of APD, and this is last August, the mayor had directed.
Yes. I was just going to ask you to give us some background. Thanks.
Last August, the mayor had directed my office to arrange for 2 layers of outside review of the Anchorage Police Department. One was an investigation of the specific August 13th officer-involved shooting that resulted in the death of Easter Leafa. That was completed, previously reported on. The second was a broader, more comprehensive review of APD's use of force de-escalation policies, practices, supervision, training to be done by an outside contractor to come in, assess, review, evaluate, and provide recommendations for changes that could reduce the incidence of officer-involved shootings. We had a very lengthy request for proposals process. We involved police union, APD, the chief equity officer, and as well as a couple of community stakeholders in the process. And we are very pleased that we now have an executed contract that we'll be starting imminently. So I did put into the assembly, or to this committee meeting's agenda, a copy of the final proposal that describes the contractor and the scope of work that will be done. And we'll also be submitting it by informational memorandum to the next assembly meeting, likely on the addendum.
So I'm sorry, I got distracted for a second. Can you just finish that last part? The timeline is what I'm interested in now that it's been finalized.
Yeah, so we are arranging, we just had the signed contract finalized on Monday, and we are arranging our kickoff call, hopefully in the next couple days or within the next week, and we're expecting it to take about 6 months. And it's a phased project, so there are different phases of it, and there will be reporting out at the end of each phase. So we'll It won't be silence for 6 months. You will hear from us along the way.
So can we, maybe we can do this offline, but I'd really like to look at those phases and how that it aligns to this committee and how we can look at using this as an opportunity to sort of report out as we're moving through the process.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Yes, Ms. Baldwin.
And this is a separate process from what APD has undertaken internally, is that correct?
Yes, I think the chief at the last committee meeting gave a lot of information on all of the other efforts APD has been making in this area. So this is just one piece of it.
Yeah, and that may be helpful at some point to bring the chief and you back to sort of, again, get the entire scope of all of the work that's being done. And because I would imagine that there would be some alignment between what we've been doing internally and what he's learned internally and what is being done with the external evaluation as well. So that's something I think we can work on is making sure that we're tracking each of those.
Yeah, and I think all of the efforts are also dovetailing. So APD will be involved in this review, and the review will be looking at what they've already done to date, as well as what they have done in the past.
Do you know, is there a sort of a comms plan at this point? Is that something that you're involved in discussing in terms of how as this work progresses, the mayor's office is going to report out to the larger community? Is that highlighted in there as well?
I don't think that is specifically highlighted out. There is a report that will be made by the contractor at the end of each phase. And so that would be a natural vehicle to communicate information in terms of the communications plan for actually the mechanism of pushing that out into the public. I don't think that's been discussed yet. We're still a couple months out from the first report that we would be seeing.
Okay. We just check to see if there's any questions on that. Nope. It looks like, wait, it looks like I do. Oops. Nope. No other questions on that one. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
All right, the next update is going to provide just a brief summary of the major differences between the mayor and member Silvers and the other members' S1 version of AO 2025-74 and the original ordinance proposed by member McCormick and others. And I know there's a work session on that plan for next week, so I will be very brief on this unless there are questions. But the overall gist of it is that whereas the original ordinance would prohibit camping and impose criminal penalties for camping anywhere within the municipality, the S1 takes a narrow approach and identifies certain safe zones, right, protected areas where those prohibitions, those criminal penalties would apply. The goal is to really allow more rapid intervention by police and more rapid enforcement against camping in areas that are always inappropriate. For example, in the street, next to a school, near a playground. So that is the major difference in the S1 version. It also imposes stricter penalties for unauthorized construction on public land. So when people are building hard-sided, hard-walled, or hard-roofed structures that are inherently unsafe, and really are designed to kind of permanently occupy parcels of public land, then it would allow for swifter intervention and enforcement.
Yeah, we are going to have a work session next week. I think that I'll just say that one of the challenges in just discussing this, and this is probably why we really need APD to be part of the conversation, is what this looks like in action, what this looks like in terms of how it's rolled out. We heard folks talking about that a law is passed, but AAPD still has the ability to make choices about when to apply it and when not to apply it. And so there was, if you set a law in place, then it reminds me a little bit of the carding, the sort of over 21 carding, and when we put that into place, it felt as though there was no nuance to it at all. That every restaurant was carding everyone every time, and it was just this, and it was so that's partly what I'm challenged with is the difference between these two, and if there is language in there that allows for that nuance, and if that even is possible within an ordinance like this, to give police the ability to make decisions about when and how to apply it. And so that's something that has come up through in the first version. I think that the sponsors even said, well, the police will have the ability to apply this, and others said, no, they won't. If they see it, they have to arrest them. They have to process it. So that's something I think that we can work through as we're going through this. But I guess the specific question is, from a legal perspective, can you talk to us? Can you just share us, how does that work? If we pass an ordinance establishing a law, what kind of freedom does that allow for an officer in applying it? And is there an ability to make a decision about to arrest or not to arrest, even though the law is clear?
I think that is a great question for APD, but enforcement is always at the discretion of the enforcer when it comes to the criminal law. I think Chair Constance comment earlier about the gentleman he's been seeing on the bridge in the median to Government Hill, he described that as the police come and help that individual who, might be violating public indecency laws, right? He didn't say they come and arrest that individual. And so I think that APD does make those decisions every day based on the situations that they're in and based on what is appropriate. But APD would be better suited to speak to that, and I know they'll be at the work session.
And I'm sure we'll have those questions. So I don't want to bring you up. I think we'll have an opportunity to discuss it next week. But are there any other questions about this? Yes, Mr. Boland.
Yeah, I think that's a very valuable part of the conversation is what does enforcement look like? What is the capacity to enforce? I think I said this at a prior meeting, but an analogy that I keep coming back to is speeding on our highways. If we think about in Anchorage, all of the roads that exist right now, how many people at any given moment are out there breaking the speed limit? Well, there's probably quite a few right now who are doing that. And does APD have the resources to be stopping every single one of those people and issuing a citation? No, there's never going to be 100% enforcement of speeding. However, what would it do to impact human behavior if there was no citation for speeding? We say it's illegal to speed, but there's no penalty. How would that impact people's driving behavior? So that's just kind of something I keep mulling over in my head.
Yeah, thanks. Ms. Baldwin.
Yeah, I think where that argument breaks down to some extent, or where that comparison breaks down with camping, is that there is a legal alternative to speeding, and that is to drive the speed limit. And when it comes to camping, there's no legal alternative. There's no way to be in compliance with the law. And I think that is the flip side of this ordinance that we really need to talk about. Because we functionally don't have the resources within our current system to offer a legal alternative to everyone who is currently residing outdoors. So yes, and also no.
Yes. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to bring it back to Davis Park because I think where that argument breaks down is that there are folks who have been offered an alternative, shelter, housing, and they've said, no, we don't want it. We're not going to take it. There's an individual who's been coming to Mountain View Community Councils for months, again, asserting we have a right to be here. He's been on different news outlets that are public saying, no, we want to stay here. We don't want to go into shelter. We don't want to go into housing. I mean, this is a year and a half ago, I was internally rolling my eyes at this social media talking point of people saying they don't want housing. They don't, but there is a subset of this population that is saying, they are bold about saying, no, we have the right to occupy public land and we don't want to take advantage of those other alternatives that have been offered to us. And then looking at how that public land is treated, the environmental degradation, the risk, the public safety issues that are going on in those camps. And so I don't know, I think it's a both and, I don't think it's an either or binary conversation. Yeah.
And I want to get Ms. Silvers in, and I also want to be respectful of time. We want to make sure to get some opportunity for folks who want to speak. And we will have an opportunity to speak about this next week. Ms. Silvers?
I guess I just want to kind of point out too that is, I believe, one of the big differences between the original version and the S1 version is that the S1 version pulls out certain areas where people really should never camp, particularly in light of some of the types of behaviors that are going on in these camps. And so they should not be by playgrounds or schools. But there are areas within the municipality with the S1 version that are not covered by the criminal penalties. And so I think that does give people options, aside from accepting shelter when it's offered as well.
Thank you. Anything else to add before you close?
I did have one other unrelated update, which is just an update about Town Square Park. So recently, there's a private security company that provides security for the PAC and the Performing Arts Center and additional companies downtown. And they had reached out saying, hey, would it be possible for us, we're out downtown anyway, we're kind of, patrolling our clients' properties. Would it be possible for us to just help enforce curfew in Town Square Park? Just by telling people when it is in effect. And if they won't leave, we'll call APD. And we were able to work out an MOU with that company where they, pro bono, just as a pilot, did that. And it really helped reduce enforce that closure of Town Square Park overnight, where there was a lot of illegal activity happening. Very few calls to APD, actually, because, a lot of people, when informed about what, they can and can't do, will comply. And we've executed a new MOU. They're willing to continue doing that, on a month-to-month basis. So we are continuing that arrangement and just wanted to share that out. And again, they have no, law enforcement authority, but they're just good citizens who are out and about anyway. And this is a benefit for everybody downtown. So it benefits them and their clients as well as the municipality. I think APD has been pleased with the arrangement.
Okay, great. Thank you. The only other thing on the agenda that we have until we go to audience participation is just a brief update. I was going to have Mr. Rivera do it, but has had to step out, so I'll do it. We had our first meeting of the task force to reimagine the Public Safety Commission, and it was a good meeting. It was a meeting where we began to think about the sort of purpose of this task force and what success potentially might look like. We also had some really informative and helpful audience for participation, and folks from the community came out and asked some really tough questions about the who's on the task force and what the real purpose of this is and how it's going to proceed forward in a really transparent way. And so the sort of small strategy team has decided to sort of pause the meetings in July and sort of take a step back and really take that feedback under consideration. And I think begin to think about maybe even structuring it differently so that it's more open and really is responsive to public need and public voice. So the plan right now is to sort of pause the meetings in July and re-engage in August. And restructure it, but potentially in a way that allows more people to be involved. So more to come on that, but just wanted to give you an update on that pause timeline and sort of rethinking about how to do it in a way that's really transparent. So that's the update on the task force. Are there any other items before we move to public participation? Okay, I don't see any. Great. How many people in the audience are planning on testifying? I see one. Any others? No. Do we have any people on the phone at this point? Okay, great. Looks like it's just you, sir. You can come on up. If we can put a microphone out for this gentleman, that would be helpful. And you can have a seat right there at the end. Yeah, why don't you right there? There you go. Perfect. You don't. You get 3 minutes. And I'm glad you're here. If you could share your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to begin. There you go.
Is this on? It's on. Okay. Yeah, let's put it over here. 1 second. Okay, so Jamie Lopez, East Anchorage, formerly Coalition, formerly Homeless, unprepared remarks. What can I say? Sometimes I lead with the sledgehammer, sometimes with the scalpel. I'm sort of undecided today. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in people here that are highly educated, that have life experience. That essentially, some have faced adversity, some understand these issues, but some completely just don't seem to understand it at all. And the simple fact of the matter is that you had a packed house on Tuesday, and 2/3 to 3/4 said, no, this is not the way. Essentially, when you criminalize a group of people that have no place to go, you're making criminals out of everybody. And you have to designate areas for people to go. You have to provide services for people. You're doing everything but. The people at Davis Park were not really supported aside from the porta potties and the trash service. And then they were left to their own devices. Well, you know what? People build structures to try and brace themselves from the elements. They try to protect themselves.
Exactly.
Who's on the phone? Do I get more time? All right. So anyways, last year at AO 2024-55S, it essentially said you cannot camp within 100 feet of a major paved trail system. You cannot camp within, licensed playground, or excuse me, licensed shelter or playground, and all of these things. And so there was no criminal misdemeanor component. There are already things on the books you can use. You do not have to criminalize people for the fact that they do not have a place to go. There are tools and you can use them, but you also need to understand that not everybody is coming back to society. They just aren't. And so you have to be prepared for that, and you have to designate places and then provide pathways out. And there are ways to work this problem. The solutions are very simple, but to implement them takes creativity and the way to pitch it so that everybody understands where they're going. And AO 2025-74S, that essentially the mayor's office is saying, oh yeah, we're just telling you where you can't go. No, everything is off the map. They've increased it to 200 feet. And literally that's the Fire Island approach, where everybody gets put on a prison colony. The disreputables are there, and then you send them else. What's happening right now is a death march. You have people that were at snow dump that are now in the streets of Mountain View. You have people in parks that were in a snow dump. They have less access to services. The police come in, they tell them to go. They go to the next place, then they go there. And essentially they keep on telling. At some point they stop. And then what happens is the police are going to say, no, you're going to jail. They take them to jail. Then they go to court. The judge is going to laugh and say, no, you know what? We're not going to give them bail. They let them out. They don't come back. And then they have a record. And then it becomes difficult to get a job. Then it gets difficult to get housed. And so, again, the point of the matter is you need to look at this in a bigger picture, but you do not need to push this forward. You need to think creatively. And, please, please, please do the right thing. History looks badly on people that do things like this.
Thank you for your testimony.
All
Is there-
versions are bad.
Is there anyone, do we have anybody online now? Do they? Okay, great. If you're online, if you can, I think it's *6 to unmute. If you could share your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yep, you're unmuted now. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes. If you can share your name for the record first, please.
Great, sure. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Emily Clock, and I live in District 3, and I'm representing myself today. And I'm testifying to urge you all to vote against any ordinance that criminalizes camping in Anchorage. I'm really glad to see that the committee here today is speaking about these ordinances, because this is a public safety issue, and in particular, this would most impact the safety of people who are experiencing houselessness currently. The ADN reported on these ordinances, referring to them as two punishment proposals, and I think that really gets to the heart of this matter. These ordinances are not solutions. They simply continue to punish people who are some of the most vulnerable in our community. That same article references that the ordinance proposed by the mayor came from almost a year's worth of analysis by the municipal attorney's office and APD on ways to keep big camps from taking root while not infringing on residents' civil rights. And it's very discouraging to me to hear that the municipal attorney's office and APD were spending so much time figuring out how to skirt legal issues, and meanwhile, people are continuing to struggle to find affordable housing, affordable healthcare, and jobs that pay a living wage. Just because there was a 2024 does not talking about building structures to stay out of the elements are being deemed, quote, inherently unsafe. As the previous testifier mentioned, what's inherently unsafe is people being unhoused and being exposed to the elements. You cannot punish a group of people just for the actions of some individuals. Criminalizing people who are just trying to meet the most basic of human needs, the need for safe, warm shelter, is not something that any elected official should vote for. And additionally, criminalizing people who are experiencing houselessness can have an impact on their ability to secure housing in the future, with many apartments doing background checks of criminal histories. So these charges could actually prevent someone from getting housing in the future. So if the Assembly wants less people camping on public lands, then they need to support and fund initiatives for affordable housing, affordable healthcare, and jobs with a living wage. And the mayor's office needs to do that as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have anybody else online that you can see? Okay. Anybody else in the audience? I don't see anybody else. Any members, any comments before we close? Seeing none. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for being here.